All right. We are back. Last session of the day. You could say saving the best for last. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is gonna be anyone with a dusty mic in a dream. Let's get ready for this one. We're gonna be doing a Q&A at the end. So make sure you drop questions in here. Jay's our last session, so we'll try to take as many questions as we can for this guy. But if you're not familiar, Jay Schwedelson is one of my personal favorites. This guy crushes it at Inbound every year. Not only that, his energy comes to life. He is probably everybody's favorite session at HubSpot's Inbound conference, I would go as far as to say.
Nice.
And not only that, Jay, you got a top 5 marketing podcast on Apple right now, man.
Right. I don't know why. I got a lot of people out there that I'm fooling, but hey, whatever. But I appreciate it, man. You're incredible. This event's been incredible, and just fired up to be an open book and share anything I could possibly share.
Well, good, man. Let me get the hell out of your way, and why don't
All
you
right.
tell everybody why B2B podcasting doesn't have to suck?
Let's do it. All right. I'm going to share some stuff here. Let's do it. All right. So let me tell you a little bit about me really quick. I'm going to get into every secret I could possibly share about podcasting, because I will tell you that overall, what I've learned about podcasting is that 95% of the information out there about how you should do a podcast, how you get to be popular, all that stuff is a hot mess, total garbage. So I want to share with you what it is that I kind of figured out. So in general, what I do for a living, I have 2 companies, not that you care. I have a demand gen agency, about 100 or so people, called Outcome Media. I've done that for a zillion years, work with a ton of giant B2B and B2C brands, running demand gen for them. So that's that business. And then I have a media company called Guru Media Hub, where we put on massive virtual conferences. We have my podcast, we have newsletters, we have webinars. And so that's where this podcast lives. I'm going to tell you all about. And so let me tell you a little bit about the podcast. This is not me telling you I'm really cool. I don't care about me. I just want to tell you how we got here, exactly the playbook, so that way you could rip it off and do it and save you a lot of time. So first off, my podcast is called Do This, Not That, for marketers only. Okay. And I started this podcast, it'll be 2 years ago in August. So it hasn't even been 2 years old. And for the last 14 months, we've been in the top 5 out of 54,000 marketing podcasts in the United States. We've also been in the top 200. We've gotten as close as top 15 in the business category that has 300,000 podcasts in it. This is not easy stuff. I'm just being straight up. It is hard to stay in the charts, really, really hard. So we're proud of that. And I want to tell you exactly how we got there, because I think you can totally rip it off. So first off, when we talk about podcast charts, there's one tool out there that's 100% free, that if you want to see the charts in any category, it's the easiest place to find it. It's called Mopod. It's charts.mowpod.com, and you can see the daily, weekly, monthly charts of any podcast on the planet, and it's free. It couldn't be easier to use. Now, let me get into exactly what I did right and what I did wrong, because I did a lot of stuff wrong. So when I started the podcast 2 years ago, why did I start it? I did not care about sponsors. I did not care about downloads. I didn't care about any of that. I started it for one reason, which, by the way, I think is the number one reason to start a business-to-business podcast. And that is as an ABM play, an account-based marketing play. So what I realized was that there were a lot of people that, for my agency, I wanted to get the business from, or for my media company, I wanted these big people to speak at my events. And when our team would reach out to these people, they wouldn't give us the time of day. They were, it was like every other cold solicitation. And then I was like, if we had a podcast, I bet you the same people that are ghosting us, if we invited them as a guest onto this Do This, Not That podcast that we were just creating, maybe they would come on as a guest instead of ghosting us in our outreach. And then the idea was the 10 minutes before and the 10 minutes after I recorded the podcast with them, I would befriend them and I would get their business. It was a pure ABM play. That is exactly how we launched it and why we launched it. And by the way, that is the ultimate ABM play. It could not work better. If you take nothing else from this, screw downloads, screw charting, screw sponsors, do it as an ABM play. Everybody has an ego. That's why they want to come on your podcast. Okay. So we start the podcast 2 years ago. We start interviewing all these people. But the problem was I learned within about, 30 days, I started interviewing all these people. I sucked at interviewing people. I was like, I'm not Barbara Walters. I'm not Oprah. I'm not good at this. And I was epically bored. I didn't want to even be doing it. I hated it. It was like nails on a chalkboard. And I was like, and we were getting no listeners, and it was just a mess. I was still meeting the people I wanted to meet, but I'm like, we need other formats of this podcast because this thing sucks. So that's when I was like, I asked a million people who have podcasts, what should I do? And they said, well, you need to go super long form, have hour-long podcasts, and you need to do this, you need that. And I started trying to do that, and it was the worst advice I ever got. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to just do what I would want to listen to. Screw this. And then we came up with formats. Which is what you see here on the screen. All of our episodes are under 20 minutes. All of them. Okay. And when we release them, we release a lot of episodes every single week. Okay. We do basically 4 episodes a week that don't have a guest, and then 1 episode with a guest. I still do the guest one because I'm still trying to get business. I like eating. I don't want to go broke. But put aside the guest one. The other episodes that we release What's Up This Week, which is basically an 8-minute thing that I do as a solo with the latest marketing news that's out there. We do an Ask Us Anything, which is our #1 format. If you want to do one format that's going to work, Ask Us Anything has our highest download rate more than anything else. And what we do is on my website, jschwedelson.com, if you go there, there's a button that says podcast, another one that says Ask Us Anything. And then what we ask people to do is submit any work question or ridiculous question, right? And then every week we answer 1 work question and 1 ridiculous question on Ask Us Anything. And it's our most popular episode. And then the last big one is our Jay's Scoop, which is my big tip of the week episode. Here's the thing that we do different than I think most every other podcast, which is why I think we do pretty well and why we've grown so fast. So we start out every episode and we share something really useful, right? Here's what you should put in your subject line. Here's what you should post on LinkedIn. Here's an ABM play. Here's your direct to consumer offer you should be running. Here's what's going on Instagram. Something tactical, marketing related that after you listen for those first 5 minutes, the second you're done listening for those first 5 minutes, you can go and try that thing. You don't need a special platform or whatever. And it's something new you relatively have never heard of before. And then the last 5 minutes, I share stupidity. I will talk about the TV shows that I'm watching, which are generally horrible. Most of them are reality TV. That's not a joke. We get submitted on Ask Us Anything. People ask us for dating advice, which is super weird. I don't know why they do, but we answer it. It could be anything. And so the first half is marketing. The second half is stupid. And the reason that works so well for us is because what happens is people stay. They hold on. They hold on till the end, and it gives us, all the metrics start to go in the right direction, and they're so short. What we've learned is that episodes that are less than 30 minutes have a 25% higher download rate, right? Even for our guest episodes. Like I just had Donald Miller on 2 weeks ago. Donald Miller from StoryBrand, big, important person, right? So that episode was still only 17 minutes. And other people are like, well, why don't you keep them up for an hour? Because nobody cares. They don't care who I have. Nobody wants to listen for an hour. So if you can get even your biggest guest to get it under 20 minutes, we see the consumption rate of that circulate massively. And the name of the game is that, right? You want to get a lot of circulation. You want to get this all going on. So if you want to follow everybody else's playbook and do these long, boring interviews where you ask the same boring questions everybody asks, here's a secret I will tell you. It's not about how great your content is. You can have the greatest content in the world, but if it's too long, nobody's going to pay attention to. And then the other piece is how you promote it. We figured out it's not just, okay, great, Jay's sharing really cool stuff. He's doing it in a fun way. It's the promotion of your podcast. That is the majority of it. So let me tell you exactly how we promote the podcast and what we do. Number 1, we do email promos, very aggressive ones. So for example, we have a newsletter that we send out to everybody that's attended our events and our database, all this stuff. It's called Guru Insider. The top portion of the newsletter is a hero tip, one big tip. Hey, try this. And then the bottom portion of that newsletter is an obnoxious thing about whatever the hook is for this week's major podcast episode. This is what we release every week, and then we do a resend to non-openers. This email crushes it in terms of getting us listeners every single week. Once we started doing this, it helped out massively. If you're not doing some sort of aggressive email promo, you're sleeping on things. The other thing that we do is we started a LinkedIn newsletter. And you could do this right now. People sleep on LinkedIn newsletters. Okay. You can go to your company page and start this. You can go to your personal page and start this. Doesn't matter. When you start a LinkedIn newsletter, okay, everybody who follows your page or everybody that follows you or is connected to you gets invited to subscribe to your newsletter. And then every time you hit send on that LinkedIn newsletter, it goes out via an email. So we said, you know what? Let's make a newsletter called the Top 5 Marketing Podcasts. This is not based on any charts. This is based on my team's editorial view on the top 5 every week. Newsflash, my podcast is always in the top 5 because if my editors didn't do that, I wouldn't like them very much. All right. And now this thing has thousands and thousands of subscribers. You can do the exact same thing. Okay. And when we hit publish every week on this, it crushes it and it gets our listenership up. If you think you're just going to make a podcast, put it out there, okay, do one post on your feed and think you're going to get the listeners, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. Okay. Then here's the other secret sauce that nobody is doing. And I'm telling you, this crushes it. So if you are screwed and you follow me on LinkedIn at all, and I'm going to put my LinkedIn thing here in the chat. If you connect with me, I share way too much garbage on LinkedIn. But there's one thing that we do that we figured out that works really, really well. And here's what we do. We make clips from the podcast episodes. But what we don't do and what everybody seems to do is they make these clips that are a full thought. Okay? They're a full thought, meaning like they'll make a clip from their episode and it will have, the guest on it, whatever, and it'll be an intelligent thought. What do you think of blah, blah, blah? And then the guest will answer the question, blah, 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 for 10 minutes, and then it's done. And if you watch that, you don't need to go to listen to the episode because you've completed the full thought. That's not how you win to get people to actually go to your show. So what we do is we take a clip from the episode and we share something important. It's a good clip. There's something of value in there. And then literally we cut off mid-sentence where I'll be like, this is what you should do on this. And you need to do this. And then we cut it off. Where it's like, oh, crap. What is it? What do I need to do? Okay. And then we put the link to that episode right there in the post. Newsflash, by the way, this just came out last week. Your circulation on your posts, if you have a link going off platform on LinkedIn, you actually don't lose circulation on your posts. Everybody thinks you do, but this new data that just came out last week shows that you don't. So don't think that if you put a link to your podcast, that's going to screw your post. It's not. You don't have to put the link in your comments either. That is all kind of like mythical stuff. But what we do, here's the secret sauce. We have a databases. I'm sure you all have databases of people that like your company, subscribe to your company, prospects to your company, all of it. You have an account-based file, whatever. Every time we do one of these podcast posts, you can do a paid boost. You do a paid boost of that post and you upload your database and you're boosting it not as a lookalike audience. You are doing a paid boost to only circulate this additionally to people that are in the file that you just uploaded to LinkedIn. And you literally just need to spend about $100 a week. That's it. Because that database that you're uploading is not massive. It's not going to be like 500,000 people. Maybe it's 20,000 people. And when you upload it, $100 a week, it will set that post on fire. And it allows your podcast episode to circulate massively. And this has been a secret sauce thing, okay, to allow the podcast to circulate. Now, I'm going to tell you the trick that nobody out there is doing that I'm tripling down on that's been working so well for us. I don't know why more people don't do this. And it's called a multi-show release collabs. And by the way, you can do this with webinars. You could do this with newsletters. Get your mind kind of opened up to doing these multi-content release collabs. Collabs are the best thing that you can do. So, for example, what do I mean? So, my buddy Daniel Murray, he's the guy who founded the Marketing Millennials. Okay, you may know them on LinkedIn. They have over 1 million followers on LinkedIn, and he has a huge podcast. It's called the Marketing Millennials. It's been around forever. Now, Daniel has a massive following on Spotify. Okay, my show has a much bigger following on Apple Podcasts, and so we talked and we said, you know what? What if we do an additional episode every week? Okay. And we're going to come up with a special brand name for the special series. And this is what we did. We came up with a brand name for the series called The Bathroom Break. And they're 10-minute episodes. And it's a co-branded release. Okay. And every Monday, we have an episode that drops called The Bathroom Break. And the secret sauce is we drop the exact same episode. He drops it on his feed for Marketing Millennials. I drop it on my feed for Do This, Not That. And the intro and the outro are special just for this Monday release. And we tell everybody, hey, go follow the other show. Follow each other's shows, and we put it all in the show notes. And what we've been able to do by doing that, dropping the exact same episode on 2 different shows simultaneously, we get so many of each other's listeners going back and forth, right? And it has been a game changer. And I don't think enough people are doing this. And we do it with other people as well. We just finished a series. We did a 5-part series with Validity, the email tool. They have a podcast called Email After Hours. And we did a 5-part series called Spamageddon, where we tackled 5 different things each week. And they released it on theirs, and we released it on ours. And that's how you get exponential growth. And it's great content for everybody involved. So I don't think enough people are doing these collabs. It's free. It's not hard. Why not? It's simple. The other thing to think about, if you're going to do a podcast and you want to rank, ranking is not easy. Ranking means you show up in the charts. The only chart that exists for the subcategory. So for example, business is not a subcategory. Business is a primary category that exists in Spotify. It exists in Apple. It exists everywhere. Subcategories are things like marketing. Marketing is a subcategory. The only place that you can see rankings for marketing podcasts is on Apple rankings. Spotify doesn't release it. Most categories that you might be in are going to be a subcategory. So there's 54,000 podcasts in marketing. I wanted to rank high because I knew it would give me a lot of cachet. I could meet cool people, all sorts of stuff. So what I figured out was, in order to rank high, if I lead all of my promotion with Apple podcasts, okay, instead of just here's the link to my show, like for example, I'll drop in the chat, this here is a link to my Apple show. I always promote my Apple link everywhere because I'm more concerned about getting Apple downloads, because the more Apple downloads I get, the more I stay on those charts. If I just say, go listen to me anywhere, then I'm not going to be able to stay on the charts. And so if you have an Apple first mindset, you'll go high in the charts, and then you'll be able to get the guests that you want. Because now I can go to anybody and say, hey, I got a top 5 podcast. You want to come on? They're like, sure, why not? So Apple first is the way that you rank in subcategories. And that Malpod is going to show you that thing I showed you earlier, where all the subcategories are. All right. The other thing that I do, which is obviously this is not really that big of a deal, on my website, jschwedelson.com, you absolutely need to have the ability to have transcripts for every episode. And that's really a play for SEO and for all the AI engines to find you. If you don't have your transcripts for every episode available, then you're wasting a lot of effort. All right, a few more stuff. Oh, maybe not a few more stuff. Free stuff. What am I showing you? Oh, let's connect on LinkedIn, please. Just drop me a LinkedIn thing. I'm on Instagram. I share a lot of clips there as well. We're doing a lot of testing there for the podcast. So it's my full, horribly long last name. If you want to connect there, that would be amazing. And then, this is my Let's Connect. I'll put this in the chat too. If you want the slides, or if you want a link to my podcast, or if you have any questions, I'm an open book. I really just want to help everybody. Send me one email with I want everything, and I'll send you all the stuff that I got. And that's it. We did it. We landed it. How about that?
I want everything.
There you go.
Yeah, man, chat's blowing up, Q&A blowing up. Let's jump into some of these. Jay, that was, first of all, love the speed, man. That's you said a lot in a very short amount of time, and I was listening. I was dialed in.
I don't believe
let's get into these questions here. First one from Daniela.
Yeah.
For a video interview series, is it worth repurposing the content as a podcast too? Does that typically drive more engagement across platforms?
Yeah. So if you read anything these days, great question. Everything, we're all about video, right? And it's all about, by the way, vertical video. So it does matter. Vertical video on LinkedIn is everything. The mistake that a lot of people are making is they think that, we'll just take the video and stick it on YouTube also, and that's going to be our YouTube channel. YouTube is critical. I'm doubling down on YouTube. YouTube is my North Star. I'm trying desperately to get this new YouTube channel going. This is my YouTube handle there. But what you can't do is just take the podcast episode and dump it on YouTube and think that that's your YouTube strategy. That's a recipe for failure, because YouTube's all about shorts. You need bite-sized clips and things like that. So you absolutely should have a video component to every episode. But you can't just dump it everywhere and be done with it. It's not that simple.
Yeah. Agree. Here's an interesting one. Are your guest spots paid? I think this is asked
Yeah.
for maybe people that are thinking about podcasting haven't, right?
Yeah.
This is a very good question. What's your take?
Sure. I'll tell you, I'll be super transparent about everything. So first off, we have one exclusive sponsor of my podcast. It's a company called Marigold, and they own it for the year. And my rules is with them, first of all, I use their platform. So I like that so I could be real about it. And also everything is me doing, it's not even an ad read. They let me just say what I want to say, and it works out really, really well. So can you pay to come on my podcast? No, you can't. The deal I have with Marigold, just to be real, is that because they're the primary sponsor, they get to come on a bunch of times, or they could have a couple of their customers come on a bunch of times. But beyond that, no, you can't pay to come on my podcast. But let's be real for a second. If I have some sort of like a big client and we're talking with them and like, hey, I'd love to come on your podcast, I'm like an idiot if I say no. So it's not a straight up, I'll give you 50 grand on your podcast. And yes, that can happen. I don't do that. There are plenty of podcasts that do, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's a lot of services out there that you can pay to get you on a boatload of podcasts. But I would spend the time and energy on your own podcast. And then the other thing I would tell you about podcasting in general is don't stop. The average length of podcasts is 14 episodes, and then people quit. Don't do that. I'll tell you my favorite thing about having a podcast, and I would say this about anything in your work life, whether it's a newsletter, a podcast, it doesn't matter if it reaches one person, a zillion people, or you're committed to posting 3 times a day, 3 times a week on social. Having a podcast holds me accountable to learn. Because I have a podcast, I have to go and research things and read things every week. It's very annoying. But if you don't have some sort of piece of content that you're putting out there that you cannot get off the hamster wheel, then you're not being held accountable for learning in your industry. So that's why it's so valuable.
Yeah, good one. This is sort of connected, but how do you develop an effective guest strategy for a video podcast? Are there certain ways that you found to convince guests to participate? And I guess maybe this is interesting to think about twofold, right? Like one, there's sort of like the way that you might answer this after you've got something that's up and running, right? Where you've got maybe some data you can show. But what about for maybe those opportunities or those scenarios where you haven't started yet, right? And you're kind of getting those first few episodes under your belt.
Yeah, especially at the start where you want to say to people, listen, this thing is just getting started, but we are putting a massive marketing push behind the clips from the show that you're coming on. This is going to get heavy circulation because we're going to put this front and center, and then say also at the end, I'm going to let you, whatever it is that you want to push, you want to sell at the end of every episode, I go sell away. We're going to put it in the show notes. Be cool about that. And I'll tell you, there's plenty of people I've had on my show that we never aired the episode. And that's the other thing that people think is that you record an episode, if it stinks, I don't air garbage. If it's garbage, I will tell the guest, that wasn't great. We're not airing it. Sorry. Super uncomfortable. But if you air garbage, you will lose listeners. So don't do that.
Man, love that you said that. I feel like that's maybe something a lot of people haven't thought about too, right? Because you default to the fact that you spent the time and energy to do it. You got to post it. Just because you can doesn't mean you should though, right?
No, it's a negative signal. It's a negative signal for your show. I even had somebody come on that said, let me try again. We did it again and we still didn't post it. That was uncomfortable.
Yeah. Question from Logan, I think is a good one too. CEO's been itching to start something, but number one worry is starting it, not being able to consistently get people to join him. How do you do it? Jay, I'm curious your thought on this, but like, as somebody that has done this for a company that was in a niche, right? Like there is a different sort of, let me give you a different thought process behind starting a podcast too. It's still one of the best ways to create video content at scale, right? Absolutely. So you've got the long form content. So let's use Jay's model of like 20 minutes. You've got the whole thing. Right. Yep. Obviously, there's an opportunity, though, to cut those into short clips, too. If you got something that's snappy, 2 to 3 minutes or less. Yep. And then you've also got this opportunity in between, like those middle clips, right? Where maybe it's a question where you go into a little bit more detail. Maybe there's a show and tell aspect. And so you've got all these different formats that exist now. And all of a sudden, from you sitting down for 1 hour, you've got several pieces of video content, right? So I just want to like throw that out there for people that are maybe thinking about podcasts. Is it going to be worth it? Like how many episodes before I fail? I used to say, even if we get 0 subscribers, it's the fastest way to create video content at scale. That said,
100%. Yes.
let's like going back to the CEO itching to start up a podcast and not being able to get people to join. What do you do about that?
First of all, don't be afraid to do solos. Solos are the best. Let's say you don't have like Amy Porterfield. I love her podcast. So the Amy Porterfield show, she's amazing. All right. Sometimes she has guests. Sometimes she doesn't have guests. And it's fine. And your CEO, trust me, if you do a format where you say, okay, this week we're going to dispel the 3 biggest myths in our industry. Next week we're going to talk about, what's the future of AI, and it's going to be a solo and whatever. That's incredible content, right? So don't be afraid to do solos, and don't feel pressure that you have to have guests lined up. That's ridiculous, because you're going to create stress for absolutely no reason. Have guests on when you have the right guests at the right time.
Love it.
Amy
Let's go to
Porterfield,
the
I'll
next
put
one.
it in the chat. Yeah.
And Jay, I'm gonna tee up 2 more questions for you. I know we're running over, but I definitely want to get to these because there's some good stuff in here. What's one hill you'll die on, if there's a hill worth dying on, when it comes to B2B podcast content strategy?
Oh my God. I really, even though I do them, I think everyone's default of these long form interviews is terrible. I really think it's a horrible, horrible format, because I'll tell you why it's so bad. When you go to start a podcast, you have so much stuff that you want to share. And then all of a sudden you turn yourself into being sidelined and just interviewing somebody. That's not what you do you're not an interviewer. Okay. You didn't start the podcast to interview people. So I just don't like that format. And I think it's complete trash.
It just becomes the default, right?
Yes.
It's just like people just default and they go there, and then they have a tough time getting outside that box once they're in it.
Yeah. And also start fast, meaning like, people think that they're funnier than they are, that they're more interesting than they are. I know, like, I'm not, whatever. Get that hook going fast. As soon as you start the podcast, say, listen, here's the thing that you need to know, blah, 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 blah. And then earn the right to tell a stupid story or a joke or whatever. Don't start out being like, well, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's just boring.
Yeah. This last one I got just for you. So can you address how transparency and personality drive your show?
Well, I would say, the cheesiest word of all time is authentic, right? Be authentic. And I will tell you, I wish I learned earlier in my career to just actually be myself, to, talk about the stupid TV shows that I watch, the things that my kids make fun of me about, and just be who I am and not try to just be like corporate Jay, because that's what we're looking for now, human to human connection. I promise you, you are very interesting. Believe it or not, when you go to the supermarket, okay, and you're going to checkout line, something happens, that's interesting. You're far more interesting than you give yourself credit for. And just share your real life and who you are and talk like a human. And that is how you find success, in my opinion.
Yeah, find a different angle and format. Yes. Like all these things are opportunities to break away from the way that everybody else is doing it. Could be the length of the episode, could be the format with the episode, could be, the topic, so many different variables that you have to play with.
Agreed.
So
totally agree.
Jay, sir, thank you for joining us. That was definitely a masterclass in making B2B podcasts not suck. I want to thank you for helping us rethink that playbook a little bit. And everyone else, I just want to say, thanks for joining us for day 1 of summer camp. That is a wrap. We will be back tomorrow. So same time, same place, with 4 new speakers and 4 new sessions. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you, Drew.
Thanks, Jay.
All right.